This day in sports history. Well, hey there, and welcome back into This Day in Sports History, a member of the Sports History Network. You can check out sportshistorynetwork.com, find your next great podcast listen, and a whole lot more info. And again, that is sportshistorynetwork.com. It is August 12th, and there is so much stuff that happened on this day. It is hard to actually know where to get started. But on this day in 1984, it was the wildest brawl ever in Major League Baseball history. So it was the San Diego Padres playing in Atlanta against the Braves, and this was the final game of a 4-game series. Now, these teams were 1-2 in the NL West at the time, but it wasn't much of a race. After winning the previous night, the Padres had stretched their advantage over the Braves in the West to 10.5 games. And the thing is, the seeds of the melee that was about to happen on this night started in that game. Padres second baseman Alan Wiggins kept laying down bunts. Now, nothing wrong with that really, but Braves pitcher Pascual Perez, who was charting pitches in the dugout, took umbrage for some reason at that, and he started screaming at Wiggins to swing the bat. Wiggins yelled some things back to Perez, and that was where that planted seed started to grow into the ugly brawl, or really brawls, that happened on this day. So, Perez got the start in this Sunday afternoon affair. The first man up to the plate was Alan Wiggins. First pitch of the day, Perez plunks Wiggins in the back. Wiggins headed to first, but a few more words were exchanged between the two. In the second inning, Perez came to the plate. Padres starter Ed Whitson retaliated, and he threw one behind Perez. Now, Pascual was not happy about that, but he really got freaked out when Padres catcher Terry Kennedy retrieved the ball and started walking up behind him. Now, at that point, Perez ripped his helmet off, but he kept the bat in his hand. He was dancing around and holding it like a weapon. Now, possibly if Pascual doesn't do that, this whole thing ends right there. Both teams were warned no more purpose pitches would be allowed. Nerves were settled down, and Whitson went on to strike out Perez to end the inning with the Braves up 3-0. In the fourth inning, Whitson tried to hit Perez again. Not once, not twice, but 3 times, and Perez stepped out of the way each time. Now, these were low and inside pitches, not thrown directly at him, but after that third one that was thrown at his knees, home plate umpire Steve Ripley said that's enough. He threw out Whitson and manager Dick Williams. Greg Booker came on to replace Whitson on the mound, and he resumed the task of trying to plunk Perez. In the sixth inning, Booker threw one high and tight, which Perez managed to dodge again, and Booker and replacement manager Ozzie Virgil were tossed. With the Braves now leading 5-1 in the eighth inning, this whole situation could have been diffused by sending up a pinch hitter for Perez, who was scheduled to hit second in the bottom half. Instead, Perez strolled to the plate to face Padres reliever Craig Lefferts. So, quick recap. 3 plate appearances, 5 pitches thrown at Perez, none have connected. The message had been sent, but apparently not received by the intended target. So, Lefferts threw his first pitch to Pascual, and it hit him in his left elbow. And that's when it all went south.
So now Jack Kroll runs the club, and Lefferts delivers inside, and I think he's going to be gone too. Here come the Braves. They are going after Lefferts. For the 4th straight time, Perez coming to the plate, and we've got one going now. And there are some hot-tempered individuals out there. Pascual Perez not involved there. Well, I tell you what, this is about as good a little battle as you're going to see. We've got about 5 separate fights going on out in the field.
Okay, so both benches cleared, piles of bodies everywhere in the infield, and Perez had casually walked back to the safety of the dugout. Now, the Padres had a guy named Champ Summers. This guy was a Vietnam veteran, a former slow-pitch softball player who had been discovered and signed to a free agent contract back in 1974 by the Oakland A's. He kicked around the minors and the majors for 10 years. Well, he wanted to deliver a message personally to Perez.
Summers headed directly for the Braves dugout. He was held back by somebody. Here he goes. Summers charging after Perez. Bob Horner has come out. We've got some fans involved now. Oh, my. Oh, my. This one is very close to getting totally out of control. A couple of fans have come down onto the field. Other fans were involved throwing things. There's still one fan down there in the middle of all that.
So you heard Ernie Johnson say that Bob Horner met Summers at the top of the dugout. Horner was the Braves' third baseman, but at this point he was on the disabled list with a broken hand that was in a hard shell cast. He'd actually been in the press box at the start of this game, but when he saw the repeated attempts to hit Perez, he kind of knew what was going on, so he went down to the locker room, suited up, and went to the dugout, just in case. You also heard Ernie talking about fans getting involved. One threw a full cup of soda at Summers, another fan had jumped the wall and jumped on his back. And then a guy in yellow Hager slacks and a white sports shirt, no doubt cologned up with Drakkar Noir for a night out with his girl and lubricated with a couple of Miller Lights, jumped into the fray. Things looked like they had settled down a little bit, but somehow, some way, another fight broke out behind home plate.
Okay, we've got one fan that's been grabbed by a couple of security guards. There we go again. Now Gerald Perry and Tim Flannery getting into it. Or is that Bavacqua? Flannery's been pulled out of that rhubarb, but we've had about 6 or 7 separate fights break out here. Security guards down in the field have a couple of fans in handcuffs, leading them off the field.
So finally, things calmed down. Soda-throwing guy and yellow pants guy both got arrested and escorted off the field. The guy who jumped on Summers' back snuck into the dugout of the Braves initially, and then he was able to sneak back into the stands, and he evaded any arrest. There were more ejections that followed, though. Lefferts and backup to the backup manager Jack Kroll were tossed. Summers and Padres outfielder Bobby Brown were ejected, along with Braves players Gerald Perry, Rick Mailer, and Steve Bedrosian. Donnie Moore replaced Perez on the mound, and it was thought that fight night was over. But it wasn't. In fact, just as the announcements were made of all the ejections from the previous round of fights in the top half of the inning, this happened.
Okay, we've got the word now on the players who... And that pitch hits Greg Nettles, and he's going after Donnie Moore. Here we go again. Nettles in the middle, Moore backing out. The benches are emptying again.
Multiple fights, one between the mound and home plate, another in front of the Braves dugout. Kurt Bavacqua got in some good punches. He was eventually ejected. Crew chief John McSherry tossed Braves manager Joe Torre, Donnie Moore, and then ordered both benches cleared completely. Players would be available, but they had to go back to their respective tunnels. As Padres players cleared the field, more drinks from more fans were thrown at them. 3 more fans got arrested. Order finally was restored. Gene Garber came on in relief of Moore, and when center fielder Dale Murphy made a diving catch in the 9th, the game was thankfully and finally over. In total, 17 players were ejected, 12 Padres and 5 Braves. 4 coaches were tossed. Interestingly, 2 players who were not ejected from this one were Pascual Perez and Alan Wiggins, the 2 that got this whole thing started. San Diego manager Dick Williams was suspended for 10 days and fined $10,000 for ordering the Code Red, while Braves manager Joe Torre was suspended for 3 days and fined $1,000. There were a variety of fines and suspensions to both Braves and Padres rosters, and that puts a cap on the worst and the wildest brawl in Major League Baseball history that happened on this night in 1984. This episode is brought to you by Firefly Books, and with you being a sports fan just like me, here's 2 suggestions for your next great sports read. If you love basketball, then you need to add Dave Zarum's book, NBA 75, The Definitive History. Uncover untold stories of triumph, controversy, and the greatest stars of the game. From the league's humble beginnings to its modern glory, it is a courtside seat to 75 years of NBA history. And if you're a golf fanatic, then you gotta check out Matt Adams' book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget. I've used it as a reference in this podcast over the past year for lots of stories that I've done, and I can tell you from experiencing it, this is a great book. Relive 50 of golf's most memorable moments through the eyes of the legends themselves. It's the closest you'll ever get to walking the fairways with the greatest to ever play the game. Grab your copy of NBA 75 or The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, available from Firefly, wherever you get your books. On this day in 1978, New England Patriots wide receiver Darryl Stingley was paralyzed in a preseason game against the Oakland Raiders. Now, Stingley was an NFL veteran. He'd played for 5 years, and though not a star in the league, he had been the Patriots' leading receiver the year before with 39 catches for 657 yards and 5 touchdowns. He was a solid player, not an all-pro, but a guy who could get you 15 to 20 yards a catch, reel in 4 or 5 touchdowns a season. He was a guy who was not afraid to go over the middle, no matter who was patrolling the secondary. Jack Tatum was one of the most feared free safeties in the league. He earned his nickname of the Assassin. He made no apologies for the way he delivered hits or he played the game. He played hard, he struck terror into the hearts and a little doubt into the minds of any player who had the football or was about to get it. On this day, the Patriots were in Oakland for their second preseason game. It was the second quarter. Starters like Stingley and Tatum would not be playing much longer, just a few more plays. Stingley had a spot on the roster. He didn't need to impress head coach Chuck Fairbanks. He just needed to work off a little bit of that rust. A few more plays, maybe. Tatum was just starting his 8th season. He was a 3-time Pro Bowler. He just needed a few more plays. Well, the next series, both would be enjoying the California night from the sidelines, thinking about football or maybe something else. How much different life would have been for both men had they been on the sideline. Quarterback Steve Grogan lofted a pass over the middle. His intended target, Darryl Stingley, but the pass was a little low and out of his reach, but Stingley dove for it, and Jack Tatum lowered his right shoulder and hit him. Stingley fell to the turf and did not move. Team doctors from both teams rushed to him on the field. An ambulance was summoned. He was taken to the hospital where surgery was performed, but it could not fix the problem. Stingley had a compressed spinal cord and a break between his 4th and 5th cervical vertebrae. He would never walk again. The first person to get to the hospital that night was Raiders head coach John Madden. He was a bit surprised nobody from the Patriots were there. No players, no coach, no front office staff. He was even more perplexed and a little angry when he found out a few minutes later that the Patriots were already on the plane about to take off for their return to New England. Madden became a friendly face for Stingley, somebody there to tell him that things were going to be all right, though everybody knew that it wasn't. During one visit, Madden discovered something was wrong with Stingley's ventilator. He hurried a nurse in to take a look and fix the issue, more than likely saving Stingley's life in that moment. And then, get this, Stingley was also not officially under contract with New England, though he had verbally agreed with Fairbanks on a contract extension the day before the Raiders game. Patriots owner Billy Sullivan said that since Stingley was not signed to a contract, he wasn't officially a Patriot, and therefore, the Sullivan family was not liable for anything, and they refused to cover his medical bills. The Sullivan family did not make things right until a settlement was finally reached to pay Stingley's medical bills for the rest of his life. The callousness of the Sullivan family in the immediate aftermath of Stingley's injury led to Fairbanks walking away from his contract at the end of the season. But Madden continued to be around. When Stingley went home to Chicago, Madden would show up often. He'd be there on holidays when he could. He was there when many others weren't, and he kept that relationship with him until Stingley's death in 2007, which was a direct result of the quadriplegia he suffered on this day in 1978. This episode is brought to you by Sterling Roastery. For several months you've heard me talking about the great products and scents offered by the Sterling Soap Company. And while there may not seem to be any correlation between soap and coffee, what is similar is the same care and attention to detail in delivering great products to their customers. Sterling Roastery will ship great-tasting beans or ground coffee, for whatever coffee-making process you prefer, right to your door. I gave their breakfast blend a try recently, and I can tell you, it was a great way to get my day kick-started with this smooth, medium blend. And just like their soaps, they have a variety to choose from. Give Sterling Roastery a try at sterlingsoap.com. On this day in 1973, it was a record, and then it wasn't a record, and then it became a record again. Jack Nicklaus won the PGA Championship for what was at that time considered his 14th major tournament win, topping Bobby Jones. Now, back when Jones was playing golf, the U.S. Amateur and British Amateur were considered major tournaments, and Jones racked up 13 of those. As a kid, Nicklaus studied Jones and then set his sights to better that mark. When Nicklaus shot a final round 67 at Canterbury Golf Club in Beechwood, Ohio, he finished 4 shots ahead of Bruce Crampton for what was recognized by those in the know as his 14th major tournament win. Well, 2 of those 14 had been wins in the U.S. Amateur. It was decided a while later that Nicklaus's win on this day was really his 12th major win. They discounted his U.S. Amateur wins. It wasn't until his win at the 75 PGA Championship that Nicklaus officially passed Jones on the all-time list. The Golden Bear would eventually win 18 major tournaments and is still the all-time leader. On this day in 1957, boxer Albert Chalky Wright died in what was first thought to be under suspicious circumstances, but was later determined to be an ironic death under natural circumstances. Wright won the New York State Athletic Commission's World Featherweight Boxing title in 1941 with an 11th round knockout of Joey Archibald. He successfully defended his title 3 times before he was defeated in 1942, but he kept fighting until 1948 when he officially retired. Wright's post-boxing career was a bit interesting. Now, earlier in his career, Wright had been hired by actress Mae West as a bodyguard during the 1930s. And as things tend to happen when an athlete and a bombshell actress are seen in the company of each other, rumors started to fly of a romantic relationship between the two, though both vehemently denied it. Now, those rumors were around for 2 decades before a gossip mag put them in print. A publication named Confidential published a salacious article about West and Wright shacking up in the 30s. West sued for libel in August of 1957, with Wright set to testify against the publication. Days before the trial, Wright was found dead in the shower of his house, leading to speculation that he was murdered or possibly committed suicide. It was later determined that Wright suffered a heart attack and then hit his head on the shower tap, knocking him out. His death was eventually ruled an accidental drowning. Time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. Those unfortunate to live under the Kim Jong-un regime in North Korea are limited in the types of hairstyles to choose from. Men and married women can choose from 15 different choices, while unmarried women must keep their hair short. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.